Mind the gap.
Good afternoon, Fabrizia. How are you?
Hi.
Good afternoon. So we're back with another episode of the Closing the Gap podcast.
Yes.
After a few weeks where we are a bit silent, we're pretty busy. So now we're back, and this is going to be episode 13. Are you superstitious?
No.
Me neither. So
Well, it depends which way you look at it. There are cultures where 13 is lucky, 17 is unlucky, and 17 is lucky in some other places. I remember when I was at boarding school, when I went to England the first time, and I was 13 years old, and I went to boarding school, and I had, after my first semester, I think, I had my first exams, and it was a small school. And the headmistress sent a little note to everyone who was having a test the next day. She would give it to us the day before with her best wishes for the exams. And this little note had a black cat on it. And in Italy, a black cat is very bad luck.
Yeah.
And in England, it's a sign of very good luck. It's like for us, a four-leaf clover or something like that. So that's when my whole idea of superstition fell apart. And I decided that, forget it. Anyway, I passed the exams, and the black cats are absolutely a sign of good luck for me. So
Good.
13, this is going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. So today I wanted to talk to you about a very specific topic. And it's one of relationships or networking, or the idea that artists and photographers cannot grow in a vacuum. We need to have a network. I think it's important either for becoming, for growing as an artist, but also for being successful. You cannot just be successful if you don't interact with others. And I was especially, I was prompted to discuss this topic. What prompted me to ask you to discuss this topic is an article that I found on a website. It's called artsy.net. And this is an article, the title of the article, we'll put a link in the show notes. The title of the article is "Study Finds Artists Become Famous Through Their Friends, Not the Originality of Their Work." Which I think is quite interesting. The article is based on a study that was made by a professor at the Columbia Business School. His name is Paul Ingram. He did this study with a colleague, Mitali Banerjee of HEC Paris. And they used the information about statistics that were collected by the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And they use this to examine the role that creativity and social networks, taken in a very broad term, social networks, not just Facebook and Instagram, but more like real life social networks also played for these artists in relationship to their fame. And they relay their findings in a paper. And the conclusion basically was that for successful artists, it was more important making friends, making the right connections, turned out to be more important than producing novel art.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
And it can also be taken to the other extreme, which we may look at later. But definitely, if we think about our work as photographers, photography is a very isolating type of work. Whether you do it as an amateur or you do it as a professional, we work alone. You shoot. You shoot people maybe, and so you interact with your clients or your models. But it's just about the shooting. And then we go home and we spend hours in front of our computers and we edit and we play around with our images, and then we figure out another shoot. And it can become very, very isolating. And running a business, if you are a photographer and you have a business, that's also, quite lonely. So I found early on that it's really, really important to create connections with others, with other photographers, with other people. And, we can look at a few ways of making this happen. And and make it and reason. And then finding the reasons why it's worth thinking about it and investing some time into it. Even if you are an introvert, there needs to be a way that you can connect with others. Otherwise, you're going to be a lone island and you're not really going anywhere.
Yeah, what that study found that was the greatest predictor of fame for an artist was having a network of contacts from various countries. Being cosmopolitan and being able to reach different markets or develop ideas inspired by foreign cultures. They say that the linchpin of the network at the time was Kandinsky, because he had so many connections all over the world. And but there is this kind of a myth of the lone artist producing great art when he's alone in his studio or atelier, like Van Gogh and so on. But even Van Gogh had connections with other artists, with Paul Gauguin and so on. He didn't grow in a vacuum, right?
No, we don't. And also, you see, the internationality helps because if you travel a lot, you're exposed to different cultures, different people, different foods, different smells, different things that really all become part of you, and then that comes out in your photography. And if we are just exposed to, a couple of Netflix shows at night, it doesn't quite work the same way as going out. And I don't mean that it's essential to travel for your photography to grow, but to meet with other people that do different things. That's important. And so the personal, in-person, say, connections that can happen at workshops, for instance, where photographers come together and they're always really energizing, very inspiring, and you come home with lots of ideas, or meetups in your city, or even creating personal projects with somebody else. Making a course with somebody else or creating a project with somebody else, and just having some kind of creative interaction with other people. Or just meeting with other friends, photographers, and create some, meaningful friend, not just to get together and network. There's been a lot of this, you need to get in, the network groups when people go and their only aim is just to promote themselves to that group and try to sell something to that group. And everybody's doing that. And there's groups that charge an awful lot of money for it. And a lot of people are sucked into it, but nobody's really interested in you. They're interested in promoting themselves, just like you are interested in promoting themselves. So it needs to be the other way around. There needs to be a sincere interest in people, because people feel that. And if I know that somebody's befriending me just because, what's going on? Oh, Siri. That's funny. I must have said something. So I say, yes, what's that? Okay. So anyway, if he was trying to be friendly with me, see? If you are just being friendly with people because you want something from them, they will feel it. And it's an empty connection. And I feel it when people try to be friends with me because they want something from me, or they want free time, or they want free advice or something. But I'm always thinking I'd rather give out more, and rather than say no and be closed in, because usually a mindset of abundance usually brings it back. If I give you something, you may not give it back to me, but someone else will. It kind of always comes back. So
yep.
I rambled a bit, but the point of this being a sincere interest in people is key.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it to build a network, and you just want to promote yourself, it's not going to work.
No, I think there are many ways to be connected, to create relationships and networks. And I often hear people talking about those networking events where you go and people are just busy promoting themselves, and they just count the success of the event in terms of how many business cards they were able to give out, which I think, I never had the opportunity or the bad luck of being part of such an event. I can only relay what people say. I can just imagine that definitely is not what we are talking about. On the other hand, I see artists are very often introverts. We are afraid of putting our work out, which makes it harder for to create connections and networks. There's also a lot of I'd like to go back maybe later to this topic of good ways and bad ways to network. But another thing I wanted to remark is the fact that there's social media, right? Social networks, whether they are real or virtual, especially virtual social networks today, there's kind of a backlash. People say, oh, I don't want to be on social media anymore because it's all negativity and it's just a waste of time and so on. Which is probably going a bit too far in the opposite direction. Yeah, it's not good to be totally absorbed by social media, but completely shunning it, I don't think it works either. I mean, it's me and you especially would not be talking here today if it were not for social media.
Absolutely. And I hear this a lot. People that work with me sometimes say, oh, I really don't want to, be on Facebook. I don't want to be on social media because every time I go in there sometimes and all I see are negative comments and people who are just expressing their stupid opinions or they're just, berating other people or whatever. And I go, social media is a parallel world. And just as I choose my friends in the real world, I choose my friends on Facebook. And actually, I'm even more vulnerable to this because I actually accept friendships and I'm personally friends with everybody inside, outside the box, for instance, both the English group and the Italian group. I make sure that we connect, that we say hello to each other at least when they come in. And so they're all people who see my posts and I see theirs. But of course, if there's somebody I don't like, I can stop them, block them. I don't have to, be seen or see their stuff. So we have a lot of power over who actually ends up on our page or not. And this thing about seeing just bad and negative stuff means you don't have enough good people around. Go look for those, just, build up better connections and cut off the bad ones. But to actually believe that we can be doing business especially, but even if you don't do business and you just want to build a following, you're an artist, you're doing photography, even if it's not your job, you want to, have your photos out there and you want people to see them. And we talked about this before and having the recognition that you deserve for all your hard work. To actually think that you can do this in 2019 without social media, without being on, Facebook and Instagram are, whether people like it or not, a parallel world that we inhabit. Now you can be locked up in your room and never show your face, or you can be out hanging out with the cool guys. I'd rather, be out with people that are positive, creative, inspiring. I get a lot of really good interactions on social media. The groups that I'm in are really, really nice, and some groups are not, and I just leave. I don't have to read stuff that I don't want to. So I see this as an excuse most of the time. There's a bit of laziness, there's a bit of shyness, there's a bit of, fear of showing up. All of that stuff put together, and one says, oh, it's such a bad place, I don't want to be there. But no, it's not. It's what you make of it. So no more excuses, really.
No, I tend to accept, if I got a friendship request on Facebook or a connection request on other platforms and so on, I would normally tend to look at them with an open mind and say, okay, I'm just going to look at this person's profile, see how they are interested in photography. Do we have common friends? Are they posting something interesting on their stream, or just cat gifs and political stuff? And that maybe I might not consider them. But if I see that they are just nice, kind people that are talking about things that are interesting, even if I don't know them personally, I'm open to accepting a connection request. Now, the bad thing that sometimes happens is that people will ask you for a friendship and you accept it, and 5 minutes later you get a request to like my page.
Yes, that happens a lot.
That happens. So I would suggest everyone, don't do it.
No, but actually, if somebody, all my requests, I mean, all the people who ask me for friendship, and I get a lot of them from photographers, obviously, I go and I look, and if they're photographers, I will accept the request, and I will immediately send a message saying, hi, nice to meet you. How did you find me? Because then they will say, oh, I'm a photographer. I followed your thing. Or we have so many friends in common. Or it came up on Facebook things and I liked your page, Facebook suggestions and I liked your page and stuff. Okay, fine. Then you have to tell me something. And then if in the next breath you say, like my page, it's harder. Because we talked already. So you have to kind of have an excuse to tell me, like my page, But they can say, this is my page, have a look. And it's a little bit nicer than just, even if I initiate it. But I think it's good. At least maybe I'm showing them how to do it. Normally if I ask for a connection, I also send a message saying, we don't know each other, but I really like what you're doing. And, I'd like to be in touch or keep in touch, or is somebody we met somewhere. So
yeah, I mean that's great, and
a good thing.
That's great, and so very few people do it. It's something that should be expected in real life.
Yes.
When you make a connection, you introduce yourself to somebody you don't know. And say at least you say, thanks for connecting, I got to know you, I found your profile this way, and so on. Also, sometimes if people ask me for a connection, I take they don't say anything because I know it's not usual. I initiate the conversation myself. And I say, do we know each other? Thanks for asking for a connection. Do we know each other? And so on. And if they don't reply, then it's a good hint that I should probably cut them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't be shy. Just it's all about conversations.
Yes.
I think, between humans. Behind the avatar, we're all human. We should try to keep being human.
Yeah, I always think that a good rule of thumb is to treat, Facebook or like any other place. If I walked into a shop and I met somebody and we started, we'd exchange a few words. Or something, sitting at a hairdresser or something, So you could use it in the same way, and don't be shy to say hi or send a message or make a comment about how we met or all of that. It's all useful. What happens is now I have 10 or 15 friends requests waiting because I didn't have time to go in, look at their page, and then send them a message and say, this, that, and the other. Sometimes if I don't have time because I'm busy and I don't really go into Facebook, I go into my groups to answer questions, but but I don't go onto my page so much. So sometimes people wait for days before I answer their friend request. And it's not because I'm trying to be precious, but it's because I don't like to just click confirm without even knowing who they are. That's mindless, and I don't need to grow a number of requests. So so if you're there, wait a second, I'll get to it.
Good. Now, what I wanted to say is that the thing that I don't do enough is being sincerely curious about other people, asking questions about themselves, especially in a conversation. And I do this in real life too. I tend to talk too much about myself, I find, and this is not because I'm so full of myself, but quite the opposite. It's because I'm shy. I'm feeling that by asking other people too much about their own lives and so on, I'm kind of intruding. And I think they might not want to talk about that specific aspect of their lives and so on. But I think that's a mistake, and I need to cure myself of that mistake. I think it's important to be honestly, sincerely curious about other people's life. What did you do? What's your hobbies? What are your passions? What do you think about this? How was your day, and so on?
I think there's a difference. I am sincerely curious about people. I like people a lot, and that's why I do what I do, and I love coaching because I love people. But I don't ask a barrage of questions. If you ask somebody about, what kind of photography do you do, then one thing leads to another. They're going to tell me about it. I'm going to tell about some of my things, and there's going to be a conversation that leads on to other questions back and forth. I don't just say, what do you do and how do you do it? And this, because yes, if you're just asking questions, then people are thinking like, well, is this an interview or is this, is this question time? But people do like to talk about themselves. So to ask a few questions, to share a bit about you, enough to get them open up a bit and be willing to talk about their side of whatever topic you're talking about. That really helps. And sometimes I can just, shut up and listen, which is very nice.
Yeah, listening is important, and that's what I don't do enough. Today, a person I've seen her after a few months. We didn't see each other, and she asked me, "Are you going to do any travel? Do you have any travels coming up?" And I said, "Yes, I'm going here, I'm going there." And then, right now, only now I realize I should have just asked her, "What about you?" And I didn't, and I don't know why. Just because I feel like I'm intruding in their life, but that should just be normal. So that's my recommendation, and I should be the first one to take it because I'm not taking it. Is to be curious about other people. It's okay, which doesn't mean, of course, as you said, just doesn't mean doing an interview, but it just means making them feel important.
Yeah.
Because you are sincerely curious about their life. And people like to talk about themselves. That's the best way to put people at ease.
Yes. A sincere interest. That's what it is. And you can't really fake it. So if you don't feel it, how do you make it up? And it really is a little bit of it is a mindset thing. And to realize that you do need the interaction, you do need the input from other people to do whatever you do better. And so when you start thinking of it this way, then the interest comes. You are interested, even if it's just on one thing, about their photography or about what gear they travel with, like for instance, when people travel a lot, I'm always interested to know, and maybe we could do a podcast on that next time. What do you take with you? What is the minimum amount of gear? What kind of stuff, why do you decide to take this and not that? Even just that is something that's inspiring. I learned from other people, little tricks and tips and stuff that have helped me minimize my gear and still be able to do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a matter of you find out about their character. There's somebody who brings 85 lenses and 4 bodies and 3 tripods and, all these things because they have to have everything. Or me, who goes away for 3 months with 1 lens and 1 body and just, and a phone. And kind of it works anyway. So it's interesting to see, to ask about all sorts of things, and the right questions come at the right time.
We're talking about asking, which can be questions, but you can also ask for favors. So I think you said that before. People who just asking for a favor straight away might be a little bit off-putting to many people. And it shows that you're just interested in a connection because you want something in return, which is always not always. So I'm reminded of this. Have you seen that movie? What was the title? Glengarry Glen Ross?
I haven't actually. Oh. It's old and very good.
It's very good, and there's this great scene where there is Alec Baldwin with this master salesman, and he goes to this office where there are people, real estate salesmen, and he's giving them a talk about on how to properly sell. And he has this mantra that he shows turns a blackboard, and he shows his mantra, and his mantra is ABC, which stands for always be closing. You should always ask for a close of the deal, a close of the sale, right? So I like to turn it on its head a little bit, and I did it in a slide that I presented at a conference a couple of years ago, and I changed that into ABG, which is always be giving.
Yes.
So you should come into a new relationship with the idea, what can I contribute to this relationship? And the first thing you should ask is not, can you do this for me? But you should always ask, what can I do for you?
Yes. Yes. And it's a concept also of paying things forward. It's sometimes you do some things and, that person may give it to somebody else. I always find that I receive so much. And so it's not a problem for me to give out. In terms of, advice and support and, especially I've had very close friends who really helped me through very hard times. And so I know what it means and, people have all sorts of difficulties. Like, for instance, I'm one of those people that if somebody out there is not very nice, I never think, oh, what a jerk. I think, what's happened to this person today? My first thought is like, we all have bad days and it's okay. And I've been grumpy, sometimes. So it is a matter of how you put yourself out there and how it's a mindset thing, really.
Yeah.
You want to tackle the day. The always be giving is a really, really nice thing. But also, one thing that I teach in my lectures is don't be afraid to ask, because it's true. I mean, being polite and asking nicely in a way and not taking advantage of a situation or, just blurting, I'm just, here's my, give me your connection and can you do this for me? That's not very nice, even if you meet somebody in person, that's not it. But generally, people don't have because they don't ask, and people are afraid to ask. It's the other side of the coin. Some people are very blatantly brazen, and some people never ask for what they want. And I think that if you don't ask, you don't get. And most people are quite willing to help, and it's nice to be able to, do a favor for people. So when people ask me, or when people are in my courses and the groups, I always say, ask. The more you ask, the more you're going to get out of this course. And some people message me directly and they just ask for something. And if I can, yeah, sure, I will, I'll even talk to you on the phone. You don't, it's not like, that's not the problem. If I can't, I can't. But if I can, I will. And most people don't ask. And asking is a kind of a bit of a lost art, I think.
Yeah, I think you're perfectly right. There's another aspect of this. I mean, of course, if you don't ask, you will never get. So it's important for you to ask. Sometimes you need something, so you cannot just expect people to find out that you need something and offer it. So sometimes it's okay to ask, but it's not.
And also sometimes people don't ask because they're afraid of rejection. They say, well, if you ask politely and you're not in a bad way, the worst that can happen is this person will say, no, I can't. That's it. It's not a problem. Nobody dies. It's,
The other side of the coin, I think, is that people really feel when you ask something to somebody, that person might see it as a way to that people like being helpful, right? And like to know they have the power to help other people. Makes them feel important. I don't want it to sound bad because people are not just giving because it makes them feel important. But that's a relevant psychological aspect. If you ask people, you empower them. You make them feel important. You make them feel satisfied and gratified when they can give, especially if it doesn't cost them anything or very little.
Yeah.
So asking is also a way of making your connections feel good about themselves. So you should also consider it in that light, which doesn't mean, okay, I'm just going to ask because I'm I'm making those people feel good. But
that's exactly it. You can ask for something and get an answer or get, even a connection may be born out of someone asking someone else for something and then going on to more things. But then, of course, if somebody just asks and asks and asks and asks and never gives back, then after a while, it's also good to say, sorry, I don't have any more time for you, because you're taking time away from other people who...
Yeah, at some point, I think you should just cut the ties with those people that just ask. But at the same time, I believe you should not keep score. You should not keep a tab like, oh, this person asked me to connect them with another person. And then, since they owe me one, I'm going to ask them something in return. I'm going, oh, can you please connect me to that other person? And they might not. And there might be a million reasons why they don't. They might not feel comfortable doing so. They might not feel that person would take it well. Or there might be a million reasons why they don't reciprocate. So the worst thing that you can do is say, okay, I've given that person a favor, I've made them a favor, and now I've asked for a favor and they didn't give me, so we're not even. I'm not going to do anything for them anymore until we are even. This is keeping score, keeping a tab, and I don't think that's productive.
No, but in the end, no meaningful connections and friendships are born out of keeping tabs on each other. So again, I think it's down to common sense and the way we should, connect with human beings. We're all worlds. There is a saying in Italian that says every head is a world. Mm-hmm. And I love it. Because every head is really its own world, and they're all there to be discovered. So some are more interesting than others. But yeah.
Yeah. So don't keep score, and don't have an expectation of anything in return when you give. I think that's very important to consider, because also if you have constantly an expectation of being given something in return, you will become bitter and disillusioned, because many times you will not get it. So just, if you don't expect it and you don't get it, when you get it, it's gratifying, and when you don't get it, you just don't care. So you're not going to grow bitter because of that.
Yes, absolutely.
On the other hand, yes, you should cut ties with people who just, after a while, they show that they're just in there for the things that you can give. So that's probably there's a fine line between giving and asking, and it's not easy to tread it. I think it's something that.
Well, I think it all goes to the concept of healthy boundaries. So there is that image of a healthy cell that has every cell in the body has a membrane, and it lets good nourishment in, and there's an exchange of things in and out, and throws out toxins and things can't come in. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm no scientist, but the concept of a not a wall but a boundary, where you don't let everybody run all over you and all over your space, and you don't answer calls at 3:00 in the morning, but at the same time you are available and generous with your time and whatever is being asked of you, and that there's a good balance there.
In the end, I think it's all a matter of empathy. You need to empathize with other people. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand what the reasons why they might be doing or not doing certain things. And I think it's Seth Godin, who I like to quote every time I can, who thinks that empathy is the number one quality of a marketer. You cannot market to people if you don't empathize with them, and you don't understand their desires, their needs, and so on. Then you can offer them something which satisfies those needs and desires.
Absolutely. And especially if you're in business, connections are absolute key. People don't buy from people that they feel no connection with. We don't. If you think about the things you buy, the brands you buy, the shops you like to shop in, it's always because there is a personal connection either to the person in the shop or to the value of that brand, or to, all of those things come into play. And you don't buy things that you're not connected with. Well, tiny stupid things maybe, but in general, we don't become loyal customers or faithful clients of places that we have no connection with, or people. So if you're in business, connections are the first thing. It doesn't matter how much marketing, because you can be spread your message across the universe so everybody hears it, but if you don't make one meaningful connection, you're not going to have one client. Doesn't matter how many people see you. So it's about being relevant, rather than just be everywhere. Yeah.
I think we've
rambled enough
about this topic, but I think it's really important.
It is.
Even though it's only tangentially related to photography and making art, but it is. But as I said at the beginning, this I don't want to say, this is a scientific study, so you should all believe me because it's a published, peer-reviewed paper. But I think it has merit. The most successful artists are not those who are original or creative or so on, are those that have the most and the best and the most varied connections. Unfortunately, maybe, because people would think that I'll have success if I create the best art, but sometimes it's more a matter of creating the right connections, and we know, right? You said it, you hinted at it, and it's very important for me and you specifically for the type of work we do, that people will buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Yes.
They will not buy our photographs or our services because they have the best photographs in the world or the best services. They buy us.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Simon Sinek says, people buy why you do stuff, not what you do. So anyway, that's it. 13 went well. Yeah, we survived.
That's all for this week. And we'd just like to encourage everyone to send us their feedback at our website at closingthegap.live. Like this episode, like all the others, has a little button at the bottom where you can just click and send us a voice message, or you can leave a comment in the comment section. Follow us on various podcast platforms, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, you name it, Google Play.
Connect with us.
You can find and connect with us.
Yes. This time you have to comment and leave a message. You have to, because it's all about that, isn't it?
Introduce yourself. We want to make connections. Great. So we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.